face-to-face and sharing stories. Stories, aren't they an integral part of the Maryknoll experience? How many of us first learned about Maryknoll by reading stories in the Maryknoll magazine? If you're like me, you look forward to the Monday Bulletin and Voices of Compassion magazine to read the stories of mission in them. When we talk to recruits or visit with donors, we share stories with them. And I'm sure all of you missioners, when you were going through orientation, you loved hearing the stories from the current missioners at the time. And then when you came home and visited your families, I'm sure you enjoyed sharing stories. And why not? There are so many amazing stories to tell. This weekend is the time to feel great pride in the MKLM story for the last 50 years. And so since we're on the subject of stories, I'm going to share my story with you.
Please.
In 1959, my uncle, Father Jack Ganley, was ordained as a Maryknoll priest. The first person he baptized before leaving for Tanzania was me. I would listen to his stories when he was back in the States and visiting my family. And 45 years later, I was at a church in my hometown of Del Rio, Texas, St. Joseph's Parish, and lay missioner Dick Burson came to give a church talk. And that renewed my interest in Maryknoll, and I began donating. And then in 2007, Maryknoll Lay Missioners decided to commission their first board of directors, which I had the pleasure of serving on for 10 years. I rejoined the board in 2020 and have been the chairman for the last 2 years. The work that the missioners do is truly inspiring, and it is my pleasure to serve. While this weekend is mainly about the last 50 years, I hope you can stay through Sunday morning when we will be discussing Maryknoll's present and future and our commitment to nonviolence. While like most Catholic organizations these days, we have our challenges, the future is bright for MKLM. This year we have 11 people going through orientation. 2026 will also mark the third year in a row that we've only drawn down 5% from foundation, a number which represents financial sustainability. For all you donors that are listening, while this is good news, we still need your help, so don't stop. With some help from the Holy Spirit, we look forward to another 50 years. So I hope you're anticipating a wonderful weekend of stories from our speakers and catching up on stories from all your friends from the past. I look forward to many of you sharing stories with me. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Father John Sivalon and Sister Elen McDonald. You have their full biographies in your packets, so I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. Father John Sivalon is a program associate for the Maryknoll Office of Global Concerns. He was ordained in 1975 and assigned to the Africa region, where he worked for over 25 years. He obtained his doctorate in theology from the University of St. Michael's College in Toronto. Father Sivalon has continued as a member of the faculty of the Department of Sociology at the University of Dar es Salaam. In 2002, he was elected General Superior of the Maryknoll Fathers and Brothers. Sister Elen entered Maryknoll in Syracuse in 1959 and professed her vows in 1962. Her first mission assignment was in Panama in January of 1965. In 1991, Elen returned to the Maryknoll Center. While in that position, she also served on the core committee leading to the founding of the Maryknoll Mission Association of the Faithful in 1994. From late 2002 to 2008, she served on the leadership team of the Maryknoll Sisters. She also prides herself as being a founding member of the Maryknoll Committee of 12. So welcome our speakers, and as we hear about the afternoon of Maryknoll.
I don't know whether there's two mics because of what happened in chapel, but anyway. Good evening and greetings to everyone, both those of you present and all of those who are joining us by live stream. I thank you for the invitation to speak at such a celebratory event. I'm happy and feel privileged to be here. Your Jubilee, like most Jubilees, is a time for reconnecting with many people and stories of significance in our lives. I found myself thinking of your Jubilee alongside a number of other Jubilees taking place this year, not the least of which is Pope Francis's Jubilee Year of Hope. Your 50 years are a true witness of hope. This is also the 60th anniversary of Vatican II and its document on the laity, precursors of your own foundation. Closer to home, this is the 40th Jubilee of the largest group ever to join Maryknoll today. The 31 adult and 10 children missioners of the class of 1985. I won't ask how many are here. It is also the 50th anniversary of John's ordination, so John and I agreed to call our presentation the Afternoon of Maryknoll, which is a far more hopeful title than it may sound. Some will recognize that we took it from a currently popular, though challenging book entitled The Afternoon of Christianity. The author of that book, Czech priest, sociologist, and theologian Tomáš Halík, uses Carl Jung's idea of describing a person's life in terms of a day to describe the life of Christianity in terms of a day. Morning, in quotes, represents birth, growing up, establishing oneself, until noontime brings some kind of a crisis or a questioning of some kind. The afternoon then becomes a time of choices and a potentially deepened maturity. Taking a bit of liberty with Jung and Halík's ideas, I will speak to the 50-year morning of the Maryknoll Lay Missioners, and John will take the noonday devil and the afternoon choices. As we all know, MKLM had two births, even two names, MKLM, Maryknoll Lay Missioners in 1975, and MAF, Maryknoll Mission Association of the Faithful in 1994. Now there exist various histories or various accounts about these births and about the sometimes fun, sometimes turbulent years of growing up. I want to reference two of these histories. The first, in reference to our good friend Sam Stanton, who was my greatest mentor in preparing this talk. He provided me with a promotion PowerPoint, kind of an at-a-glance chronological pictorial history of Maryknoll Lay Missioners. He goes all the way back to 1908 in the church and to the present. The slides of which I have printed and mounted on poster boards for your perusal, excuse me. And they're on the back wall here, but they can go across the street later. The second history I will be referring to is a paper presented by lay missioner Vicki Heilman at the joint Maryknoll Mission Forum of 2002. This paper, already 23 years old, spans both the 1975 and the 1994 births and fleshes out well most of the first half of your 50-year history. I find it curious and perhaps somehow meaningful that you neatly celebrate the last 25 years of one century and the first 25 years of a new century. I personally have had numerous engagements with lay missioners over these years, anything from square dancing in the Walsh Building parking lot to more serious moments. I had begun working with Father Jim Madden in coordinating the affiliates when I was asked to join the court committee that led to the 1994 birth or founding of the Association of the Faithful, which I think is still in process, the MAF. Secondly, from 2002 to 2008, I happened to be part of the joint meeting of leadership that included the Maryknoll Lay Missioner leaders of those years. Third, and until now, my experience relating with lay missioners is in our self-constituted, self-named Maryknoll Committee of 12, begun in 2020 and comprised of 3 members from each of Maryknoll's 4 expressions. I mention these moments as my credentials in view of something Vicki writes in her 2002 paper. She points out that, and I quote, "Working together with the society and congregation was always part of the plan, with lots of good work done in the early years to assure that a lay mission presence would be an ongoing part of Maryknoll's contribution to the global church." Unable to cover all the details of the lay missioner history, I found this clear and important statement to be a way to select, focus, and limit comments on your expansive history this evening. In this regard, the idea of name recognition came to mind. Lay missioners who came to Maryknoll in the 1970s seem to have been so much like us, your older siblings. By 1975, the name of Maryknoll was already becoming synonymous beyond mission alone to include justice and peace and later care for creation, both at home and abroad. You were only 5 years old when the 1980 decade began with martyrdom by association with Maryknoll of 2 lay missioners who were friends of, though not Maryknoll Lay Missioners. Jean Donovan was killed with Maryknoll sisters in El Salvador, and John Gawker died in the mysterious plane crash with Maryknoll Father Bill Woods in Guatemala. Despite these deaths, lay missioners continued to come. You clearly identified with Maryknoll's evolving identity, and your personal stories contribute to and give witness to that call. This phenomenon is described as a morphic field, a field of energy, of like-mindedness. This is something palpable, often commented by people as being felt or experienced on these Maryknoll grounds and or with Maryknollers and their works around the world, of which you have become such a significant part. The Maryknoll charism is seen as an openness, a way of people's being together in our world, of listening with honest respect to one another and to all peoples and cultures. Your early to mid-history indicates that such hospitable bonding in your growing up years was enhanced by having had your own home on Maryknoll grounds at Bethany for 34 years. If the 1980 decade saw martyrdom, it also saw a high percentage of lay missioners renewing their contracts for ever longer periods. And the number of countries where lay missioners were serving, mostly with other Maryknollers, was growing at surprising speed. Lay missioners at Maryknoll Center were also being welcomed to serve in society and congregation offices, and in the missions they began participating in regional and area structures, and as observers at major society and congregation meetings. Vicky's paper points out that this period initiated structural stretch and the search for institutional stability. And this is what led to the 1994 second birth. There was another factor of evolving identity taking place along the way of your 50 years. Maryknoll, an American Foundation for Mission, was slowly becoming international and intercultural, not only in its mission task, but in its DNA, its very makeup, in its membership, and in its worldwide vision. MKLM marriages evidence this. More recently, and perhaps the most stark affirmation of this fact, is the giant step for Maryknoll made by the MKLM in the acceptance of 3 young missioners from El Salvador who were given training in Cochabamba, Bolivia, where their mission sending ceremony took place in May, and in which they were assigned to communities in Bolivia. Maryknoll Lay Missioners have bravely done what your sibling organizations are barely in the process of envisioning. But I have jumped over a number of extraordinary stages of the second half of your hypothetical morning. The total first quarter of the new millennium has been truly evolutionary for the Maryknoll Lay Missioners. Assemblies were called and realized at different moments, and included a new mode of stability in the approval and wisdom of a board of directors with fiduciary responsibilities. The popular name Maryknoll Lay Missioners, rather than MAF, or Associate Lay Missioners, was restored. There were many structural and even location changes and rewriting of guiding documents. Most fascinating, though frightening perhaps, was that the early years of this period began with an optimistic vision that was cruelly dashed within the first decade. The worldwide financial crisis of 2008 brought about not only staggering financial losses, but also the loss of Maryknoll Lay Missioners' would-be permanent home on Maryknoll Center grounds. Through all of this, MKLM has demonstrated outstanding creativity, excellent leadership, and group cohesion in a determination for a lay presence in Maryknoll to survive as a gift to the global church. There is so much more to be shared, and for all of us to learn from the exceptional resilience of Maryknoll Lay Missioners during your first 50 years. To speak of the global church at the end of your Maryknoll Lay Missioner morning reminds me of how Thomas Halick, in the book I referred to earlier, sees the church as Dulcinea. I will probably go to my grave as a Don Quixote, seeing the tremendous faith, meaning, network, and potential of our noble Lady Church, despite the countless flaws correctly pointed out by many Sancho Panzas. Nevertheless, we are blessed to be living in the age of the Spirit, and perhaps at an evolutionary point beginning a new civilization. It is time when our church, through synodality, is giving special support and significant roles to the laity in a renewed vision and promise. Its pyramidal structure is in the process of being inverted and shaped anew by all the baptized working together. And with that, we go on to the Noonday Devil with John Sivalon.
thunder of this talk by mentioning the importance of story and stories. I want to join, by beginning this talk, joining with Ellen, just in expressing my own gratitude for being invited to be a part of this opening of this celebration. And I may not have the credentials that Ellen has with regards to it, but I found it just an honor to be invited to be a part of the liturgy, but also a part of this opening tonight. I also want to express my gratitude to Ellen. And Ellen said we sat together and we decided that we were going to talk about or use this imagery of the afternoon of Christianity in the book. The reality is, Ellen said, we're going to use this book. But she did suggest it, seriously, and without the force that I may have put into that. And we went on. And I have a PowerPoint that helps me kind of keep in touch with what I'm trying to say. So if I get lost, at least you can look at pictures and see what's happening. I don't know if your hearing insurance covers eye insurance, but I need some of that right now. So stories are important, and one that Ellen likes to recall, and even recalled when we sat down to and first met to plan this talk, is how in a JML meeting, she gave this long, passionate explanation about something. And when she got done, she claims, her memory is, that I responded with a snarky, so? No, I don't recall it. Nobody else seems to recall it. But her recalling of that incident in the preparation of this talk kind of led to labeling then this noontime of Christianity, this noontime of the world we're living in, as a so what moment. A so what. A so what moment, if I can do this again. You can't see from over there. Mike, you want to come over here? Oh. A so what moment is a moment that conjures up the apathy and globalization of indifference that Pope Francis so strongly warned against. And it is a so what moment that has led us into this situation of living under a demonic narrative of darkness. A darkness that has separated mothers from their children, a darkness that rounds up humans like cattle to be shipped off, a darkness that strips families of food, that threatens residents with deportation, that removes support for children in foster care. So what? This is the demonic at work, a narrative that ignores the warnings of climate catastrophe, that orders more drilling and more mining, that ignores the cries of the homeless, the cries of the poor, that arms the perpetrators of genocide, that drops bunker busters to grab headlines and shuts doors to those seeking refuge. It is a narrative of individual greed, selfishness, racism, and self-aggrandizement, dressed up in a narrative of populism and ultranationalism, which undergirds the demonic and the darkness in which we live right now. But Maryknoll has never and will never say so what. Maryknoll as a movement began with a very different narrative, a narrative of light. It was a narrative embodied in a magazine, Our Common Ancestor, that believed that the gospel was a narrative of light to be shared in an evangelizing fashion. After Vatican II, the narrative of light became much broader, holistic, emphasizing liberation, social justice, human development, and care for creation. This narrative is embodied in a publishing house, Orbis, Our Common Heritage, that inspired and continues to inspire a narrative of light, joy, hope, and love, over against a narrative of darkness. Moreover, the narrative emphasizes the importance of personal narratives and how they intersect with it. Your stories and the stories of all those people whom you have encountered on this pilgrimage towards holiness are an integral part of this narrative of light over against the narrative of darkness. A new narrative of Christian mission for the afternoon of Maryknoll emphasizes an even broader, more holistic understanding of God's mission, highlighting the importance of deep incarnational living, mystically aware that our flesh and blood, our bodies, are not just present in the here and now, but have existed throughout deep time and deep space, traveling as particles in the emerging universe for over 13 billion years to this moment, and will continue on into the deep future. As they say, we don't live in the universe lives in us. We are one with all of matter. The new narrative of light is embodied in creation, our common home, our common ancestor, our common heritage, and our common home, and intersects with the larger biblical story of God's mission. It is a narrative that is expansive, evolving, and always open to more. It is a narrative that stresses the oneness and fluidity of creation with a deep interconnectedness against all the artificial boundaries used to separate us from one another, from other species, and from all of matter. As Pope Francis said in Laudate Deum, this is not a product of our own will. We don't will this. Its origin lies elsewhere in the depths of our being, since God has joined us so closely to the world around us that we can feel the desertification of the soil almost as a physical ailment, and the extinction of a species as a painful disfigurement. He goes on to say, let us stop thinking then of human beings as autonomous, omnipotent, and limitless, and to begin to think of ourselves differently in a humbler but more fruitful way. When Francis talks about feeling the very desertification of the soil within us, or to feel the extinction of a species as our own painful disfigurement, he is taking us beyond simply the interconnectedness of reality to the deep physical and mystical connection that exists in creation itself, our common home. It is expressed through the language of science as entanglement and evolution. Entanglement takes us beyond empathy, beyond compassion, to a oneness in which someone else's pain, the suffering of another species, or the scarring of the earth, is in a real sense our pain, our suffering, our scarring. In matter, we are grounded as one. Some mystics had a unique understanding of the second creation story of the Bible, out of which this idea of being grounded and the oneness of the ground came. While most traditional understandings would say that human beings were expelled from the garden, the mystics say, what if you think about it as God being expelled from the garden? That we are living in the Garden of Eden, but we have chased the divine out. Or we fail to recognize the divine that is here. So if this is the case, where should we look for the narrative of light for the afternoon of Maryknoll, if not in the garden itself in which we live? In the document Keep Watch, there's a section titled The Mysticism of Encounter. This title captures most succinctly an element of our lives that is essential for this new narrative of light, offered to us by our common home. We go out not simply to encounter, to serve, or to accompany, but to ponder deeply our encounters with the divine in the world in such a way that they lead to a deep new awareness of the oneness of us all. This Jubilee offers a tremendous opportunity to share our stories and the stories of all those people with whom we have lived and worked. And let us listen to them, not just tell those stories, but listen to them with a mystical ear as we contemplate the working of God throughout our lives. Like Scripture itself, let our stories reveal the newness of God's working in our lives, even in these times of darkness. Our stories are the stories of God's light. On a personal level, all of us recognize how our missionary experience has changed us. In crossing the boundaries of cultures and comfort, we all have been converted, reformed, and transformed by those whom we have encountered. And it is our role in the afternoon of Maryknoll, in this new narrative of entanglement and evolving oneness, to bring our experience to the church, calling it to go out to the other, not only to invite them to become dwellers, even though some may, but rather to be transformed and to recognize the voice of God in creation, in science, in cultures, religions, histories, genders, orientations, and the struggles of people. The dimension of mysticism nuances the deepest reasons why, how, and what our expectations should be in these encounters. And what greater goal could there be for this Jubilee than our mutual transformation through a mysticism of encounter with one another and all those whose narratives we bring with us to this Jubilee celebration. The new narrative of light does not displace the first narrative nor the second narrative, but is grafted onto them. We continue to live under the influence of the first narrative of evangelizing mission, sharing a gospel of light in the midst of darkness. For most of us, the second narrative embodied in Orbis has moved us to reach out to the other as an expression of our belief in the law of love. It includes reaching out to the other by joining the struggles of people to change the structures of systems of oppression that are creating the downtrodden, the systems of oppression and structures of oppression that are a part of the narrative of darkness. This is exemplified in our efforts by all our institute's efforts for justice and peace in the care of creation, including our joint efforts, and I have to mention this, our joint efforts as Maryknoll through the Office of Global Concern. The new narrative of light adds to this understanding what I would call, or what I would emphasize as reaching out to the other on a deeper theological level. Mission, as mysticism of encounter, is based on our profound belief in the abiding presence of God in all of creation. As Francis says, with a contemplative gaze, a gaze of faith which sees God dwelling in their homes, in their streets and squares. God dwells among them, fostering solidarity, fraternity, and the desire for goodness, truth, and justice. This presence must not be contrived, but found and uncovered. If we really believe in God's active presence, then God is actively present everywhere without exclusion, no matter how hidden that presence may seem because of the demonic narrative of darkness. It is a presence that needs to be found and uncovered. For us then, going out to encounter the other includes a very real desire to discover more deeply the presence of the divine in the garden. We need to bring this unique perspective to continually challenge the church, to challenge Maryknoll and ourselves, to look beyond our own borders, to look outside of ourselves with an active, contemplative gaze, to encounter the world as essential to a true, holistic, mutual transformation, which is essential for the new narrative of light. Francis affirms this reason for going out when he says, if we really believe in the abundantly free working of the Holy Spirit, we can learn so much from one another. It is not just about being better informed about others, but rather about reaping what the Spirit has sown in them, which is also meant to be a gift for us. May this Jubilee celebration, with all its mystical encounters, be a gift for all of us, discovering anew what the Spirit has sown for us for the future, in the stories of light, in the stories of God's light, our stories.
Wow, so what does one say following? I'm not even going to try. Thank you, though. Thank you. Wonderful way to begin our time together, for reflection, for sharing stories, and for looking and envisioning together forward. We really appreciate all that you have started us off with today. So now I am only going to change a little bit from the sublime to the mundane, as we say, to make sure everyone knows about tomorrow, that all the meals from here forward will be at the seminary building, at the Society House. On the first floor, there's a lounge where it used to be the old library. To the right, breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all over there. You have that in your packets. And then the sessions are also over there. There's a room called the Asia Room, also on the first floor. And again, your schedule says what time the opening prayer is, the sessions begin, and so I'm not going to spend time going over that. Were there a couple, I see a question, and I don't want to miss the moment to answer to some logistical questions. Yes?
This is a logistical, excuse me, this is a logistical question. I just want to know if we can have copies of what was just shared with us.
Yes.
Please.
So, give me one moment, because speaking of logistics, I didn't have this correctly placed. This was supposed to be up here. Just a small token to say thank you. There are no other logistical questions. There are drinks, and we are able to stay. We are able to stay and continue the conversation and sharing this evening. There's wine and other drinks and some snacks. As long as we stay on this floor, I was told we could stay as long as we wanted. Is that right, sisters? So just to enjoy. Another question, Mary.
So how do we get out of here?
Someone has to go and go.
Yes.
Do you have to go to the bridge again?
No, there's a door right here to the, this direction. There's a door that goes straight out into the parking lot.
Thank you. Will we be able to get copies of the presentations?
Yes, I just wondered, do we send them to you or?
Yes, if you send them to me, I will make sure that anyone who wants them, we will have access to them.
Thank you.
Yes, the live stream is being recorded, so that as well is available, but we will hopefully get the written one as well. All right. Yes, you gave us much to think about, and I know there will be much food for thought and conversation. Thank you.